because I'm always experimenting with food because I'm struggling with trying to do a diet that doesn't quite fit with how people do things these days. And I fancied making a rhubarb crumble,
Yeah.
and I thought I could do it with oats, a minimum of flour, and I don't mind butter, but I don't want a lot of flour and sugar.
Yeah.
I think that'll work. We're going to try it anyway, and Drina will tell you, or she'll tell you she was sick when she comes next week.
It's Thursday.
Well, obviously, I would like to say if she is sick because it's not because of the rhubarb, it's because of the other stuff you put in it.
It's because what I did to it.
Okay. Yeah, it's what you did to
it.
So,
feed a 13-year-old? I've got a 13-year-old girl here, and she's a real fussy eater.
Yeah.
I'm running out of ideas.
Well, that's good. She'll tell you what she likes, won't she?
She doesn't like anything.
Don't like anything. What does she normally feed on? How does she keep alive? Ask her how she keeps alive.
She likes meat.
Meat?
She likes meat. Red meat.
Right.
In Spain, they eat a lot of red meat. And I hardly eat any red meat.
Ah, well, you're on a different kind of diet. See, I eat a lot of red meat and mint. We're all different in what we choose, aren't we?
Yeah, but she's fussy about everything.
I think what else does mint go with?
Vegetables. She's not a fan of veggies.
So what does she eat? As you say, she can't live on mint if that's the only thing she likes, can she?
Well, because she's not a fan of vegetables, I've made a vegetable soup and pureed it. So she doesn't want any chunks in it. And she would live on cheeseburger and chips, to be honest. She would have that every day. Yeah.
Well, that won't do her any good on the long term, will it, with a lot of bread and chips?
She does like a pancake. It's the one way I can get her to have fruit.
Could you get her to have savoury pancakes? I mean, you could put savoury with mince or with fish.
Yeah, she would have that. She might have a little bit of pasta and tomato sauce. But I've had it for 3 weeks. This is the third week.
The nightmare.
Well, hang on a minute. She's close on having to go to hospital now because you're not feeding her or anything?
Oh, God.
She's going to grow up ever so fat on that kind of diet. Big burgers.
She's very skinny. She's very, very thin, so she could do with a bit of extra weight.
Probably because she doesn't eat much.
Except
she
red
just
meat.
Picks.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
it's really, really difficult.
Yeah. She's not vegan as well, or something like that. That adds more.
No,
she can't. Hang on, she can't be vegan if she eats meat, can she?
She would just have a big plate full of beef.
Right.
Raw, but practically raw.
Yeah.
Does she like that? So it's how the animals used to be when we were hunter gatherers, didn't they? The animals would kill and eat it. They had to eat it raw because they couldn't cook it.
When I say raw, she likes it rare.
Oh my God!
Not raw. She likes it rare. She likes lamb. I said, what about the poor little lambs? Don't you feel sorry for the little lambs? She said, yes, I do feel sorry for them, but I still like to eat them.
That's fair enough. I like little lambs and I like to eat them.
Yes, I do.
Are you banned, Andy? Now I got it. I'm not going to tell. That's just terrible. My little lamb would be horrified with you saying that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No.
So I've had to send 2 links to Roger now. So anyway, Anne, it's my pleasure to have sent you that rhubarb. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. So yes, that pleased about that. Please. Next, I'll be sending you potatoes in the post, but I don't.
Well, perhaps I might send you a photo of the thing Drina and I are having if it works. If it doesn't work, I won't send a photo.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for that, Anne. Right, Judith has got some news about the rhubarb as well. Come on, Judith, tell us about the rhubarb. Hang on, Judith.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. Oh,
I'm multitasking with making a cup of coffee, tea whilst I'm doing this. So right, okay.
I make rhubarb and custard.
Now the big question is by the way, guys, we're not doing any history archaeology. We're just doing rhubarb tonight. But rhubarb is directly linked to the Romans, as you know, bring it to Britain in the first place. So we're doing rhubarb. We're not interested in anything that Gina's got to say. Don't really care. But Judith, tell us, Judith, how many sticks of rhubarb did you use for that creation with custard? Hang on, is it me or she's not? Is she trying to telepathically tell me something? Yeah. No, I said
your sound's breaking up, Carl. Yeah. Yeah, your picture's frozen and I can't hear you at all now.
Oh.
It's ever since Roger came on, it's his fault.
Yeah, I know. Could be.
Okay.
Hi, Roger.
Oh, Roger.
Carl was breaking up.
Okay, what I might do is just dump myself in the field and just I might get a better reception, right? Right, Judith's gone.
Can I hear you?
Can nobody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. Let's start again. Gina, anything you want to say?
No, thank you. No.
I've insulted. I've insulted her, and now she don't want to say anything. Right. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Zoom threw me out. I had to log back in.
Yeah, it was your fault. Something went wrong.
Oh, of course it was.
Right, Judith, can we just make some sense, right? Just make some clear sense, right? How many sticks of rhubarb did you use for your delights?
I don't know. I used all of it and then divided it into 4. So I don't know.
So that's the same ratio that Anne's using.
Is it?
Well, not quite. Anne's being
with vanilla.
3
I think I only ate 3.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is
it was just one little dishful for me and I ate it here.
Right, let's just go off this. My head's gone. Right, talking about my head's going. Margaret, your head went ages ago. Go on, tell us.
I've got nothing to say. I'm looking to see if there's any news, and it just says ancient Roman villa found beneath high school gym near the Colosseum.
Hang on, a high school gym near the college. It's probably like 5 miles away from the center of Rome. You know what these stories are like.
Yeah, dating to the mid-2nd century.
How can it be a high school near the Colosseum?
Well, there is. Why shouldn't there be?
Why not? No.
Kind of relative, isn't it?
Yeah, well, near like 3 miles away.
Yeah.
Closer
like
than
near.
us. Like,
yeah.
Can you remember that story about the road being under the McDonald's? Right, it said like this is in the center of center of Rome, and it was like 6 miles south. But you know, it's too it was relative, isn't it? Right, okay, Margaret, don't worry about it. We'll crack on. Margaret, by the way, right, when I went to Spain, right, when I worked in Spain for like 6 weeks, everyone ate meat except for me, so what about tacos? What about sort of all that type of stuff? Because when they go to these places like in Madrid, right, it's all about tacos and spicy stuff and a little bit of meat. Think about it.
She likes Granny's new potatoes. She's a fan of potatoes.
Oh, well, hang on a minute. You're winning, you love. You got pancakes. You've got potatoes.
Yeah. A lot of carbs.
It's all carbs, which isn't all that good. Is what I'm saying. You need some.
She does like an egg. She has a poached egg and toast for breakfast, which is good.
Eggs good.
Margaret, don't complain. Don't you tell your lies. She's eating loads of stuff. Right, let's crack on. Andy, anything you want to tell us, love?
Just I came across something odd today. I was watching one of the old versions of Digging for Britain. I'm guessing from about 10 years ago. Ironically, was the one that had the review of the Bloomberg dig, and also Ebbsfleet. but that, which was also interesting, the second visit to Ebbsfleet, proving that that Caesar had definitely been. But what astonished me was they were looking at a wreck of a Royal Navy ship from early 1720s off on the south coast, and it had been a escort vehicle for a convoy that had come across from Virginia as part of the triangular trade, and they'd all got wrecked in a storm, and there'd been 240 odd ships set off, and I think it was 24 survived. And that was just one trip, and thinking, God. And they said the history of it was really interesting, because they said it was an escalating of problems, because they were going down. They excavated an ivory tusk, an elephant tusk off the wreck, and said, well, that's clearly, it had gone down to or some crew member had obviously gone down to Africa, over to the Caribbean and the States, and come back again. But it was just, I thought, how and they got delayed several times, and that they'd set off late from Virginia, which was what their problem was.
Can I stop you a minute? The reason why I've said you said what, 240 ships and like 24 survived, right? Or whatever you said. So some of them would have been slave ships.
No, well, they wouldn't have been coming back from Virginia. They'd have been in tobacco and cotton and sugar and stuff like that. But they're part of the slave routes, part of the triangle. So these escort ships would have gone with all of them. But whether those same ships, I doubt those same. I'm assuming that because they've rigged for slavery, they'd have gone. The slavers would have gone straight back to Africa to pick up more. So, but I just thought, I knew they lost lots of ships in big storms, but I never realized it was quite as many as that,
And there's also one little thing that I used to tell when I used to do my ghost walks. There's a place on the South Wales coast called Dunraven, and there's another one called Nash Point, Ogmore, and St. Donat. Now we're in 1453. The Stradling family decided to deliberately wreck a pirate ship. So there was this pirate guy. He's going up and down the coast, raiding boats. So they trapped him, and they wrecked his ship, and they killed all these pirates, right? And they basically said, hang on a minute, if we can do this with one ship, right? What if we deliberately wreck a ship every single year, right? So all the other lords of the manor across the coastline, there's about 5 of them, decided to go on to this trade of deliberately wrecking ships, one a year, right? So and when you think about that, if these lordships are wrecking one ship deliberately, that's 5 wrecks a year, and this apparently goes up until the 1800s. So these are deliberate wrecks. So this is hundreds and hundreds of deliberate wrecks. Let alone what Andy's just been talking about.
Did it on the Cornish coast and Devon coast quite a lot as well. One of the reasons the Coast Guard got set up, well, it wasn't set up, it was set up before that, but one of the reasons that we had guns in them days.
Well, you did have the support of the militia as well, my dear. So right, talk Andy, we love it. Roger, it's good to have you back after like 4 weeks. Where have you been? Well, we haven't really missed you, Roger, but we thought we'd say.
Well, I thought we'd give you a bit of peace, but no, hell is loose.
You're looking well, mate.
Yes, you are.
He does. Mind you, last time he didn't have a top on, so it's a bit of an improvement.
I've got a top on, no. I've got anything on, it's just too warm. Nothing on at all. It's best to stay cool, for your heart.
Yeah,
Roger, you're always cool in my mind, Roger.
Okay. Yeah, why is that? New part,
yeah. Rog, wink, nudge, say no more. Rog, do you like this?
Tonight we got a big picture here, which is different from what we used to have at the main. I'm talking to you on quite a sizable picture. Have they updated Zoom or something?
Yeah, but Rog, have you noticed? Look at this, Rog, look at this.
What?
My God. You look like a 50s throwback.
Were you James Bond or what?
You look like Bobby V.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. I only gave you a fiver to say that, Margaret. You know. There you go.
Very good, yeah.
So right, okay. Well, the only one we got to hear from is Will. Yeah, at this stage, David would have left because we haven't actually done anything yet. Right.
Will was on just now, wasn't he?
What's that?
He was on just now, Will.
Oh,
No,
Will is.
he
He's
wasn't
still
on.
on. Will's still on.
David?
David's not on. No.
No,
I'm still here,
by the way,
Roger.
we need to get in contact with David to find out where he is. He paid his money, but obviously, we haven't heard from him, which is a bit
He
weird.
goes on Bibby's coach trips. He'll be on a coach trip.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Andy, did you say they've updated Zoom?
Yes, they did. There was an
Like 2
update a
weeks
couple
ago.
of weeks ago. Yeah.
Perhaps I missed that then.
Mm.
I'll have to
Well,
get my son
that's
on
what it.
tomorrow.
Roger, that is what it is. But all I need to know, what link did you get? Did you get like a blue button link, or did you just get a load of words? Which one did you press?
One about a yard long.
Oh, right, that
A
one,
long
because there
link.
was another one. Okay,
And I went
fair
through
enough.
a few bits and pieces. Do you want
Yeah.
this? You do that? Do you want this? How's your father?
Yeah, you should be all right again now.
And then it
Yeah,
came back, but the format is different in that the main speaker comes up as quite a sizable screen, not just a smaller one. It's better for me. But the other background stuff in the gallery are up top.
You can
So
choose that view.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you could.
I don't know if my selection on the top screen on the icon is going to be reloaded or something. I'll check with my son tomorrow. He's not one.
By the way, some of you said this looks scary.
That's horrible.
You always look
Yeah.
scary. Oh,
Apparently, that's supposed to be Matt Smith, the actor.
it looked like you're in a 15-inch gun position or something, ready to fire off.
It does. You're right.
HMS Duff.
Yeah.
Up the duff, right?
Yeah.
Talking about being up the duff, Will.
Yeah, nothing from me. Thank you very much.
The
Where
great.
are you now, Will?
What's that?
Where's Will now? Back home or?
No, I'm still in Rotha.
Where is Will now? I want to know where Will is.
Yeah, for another 3 weeks, Roger.
Oh, he's still.
Nice to see you again anyway. Yeah, great, mate.
I was trying to get him a. Don't worry about it. I'll manage somehow. Right, okay. We're gonna start off hopefully with this, and we will crack on with following. Right, we share.
There was a quick thing.
Hopefully,
a great
go on.
hoard we found off for Talbot Beach. You picked that one up? It was from a 17th century wreck.
Where?
And this fellow had been metal detecting for a long time and turned up no end of reales and stuff. And he'd declared it to the museum and it was on the news. Hey up, where you go?
Did you say Port Talbot Beach?
Yes.
Did you? I didn't know they had a beach in Port Talbot.
Yeah, it's a nice beach, good sandy beach. Better than Barry.
Okay, fair enough. Shut up. Look, you and I are going to have blooming words in a minute, and I'll stop it. Right.
Now,
are you seeing a caravan on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
is that the Diggers caravan?
That is the Diggers caravan. We had what was it? We had £450 worth of contribution. So the caravan cost 300 quid. The paint probably cost 100 quid. But it's come out pretty well, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Have you painted it? Yeah.
Yes, but I painted it blue, Roger. Yeah.
You said you would on your newsletter.
So basically,
like
what
the
I'm going to do,
Father Ted.
Oh no! Oh yeah, we got 12 people in there dancing, and it just falls over.
What?
No, I've got to change the lock, so I've got to get a new lock. But look at that there. Look at these new stickers that we got. They're great, aren't they?
I'm going to change my lock on our new front door.
Is it propped up at the back?
Oh, hang on. I haven't told you the full story. No, this is I've had to paint it in the middle of the field, and now we've got to then put it in position. So in the winter, right, if that was there, that just wouldn't be there for 2 minutes. It would just probably blow down the hill. So so tonight I was supposed to be on set, right? And so what happened, I went all the way to somewhere, a place known as Blockley, and then the next thing was that I got there at 7 o'clock, and it wasn't like me. The first thing that they said, "Oh my God, Carl, you're 2 minutes early for once." I thought that was nice. That was nice. So before I buggered off and had my food, they got me into doing what I was doing, and it's called Father Brown. It is, if anyone's ever heard of it. So what it was, I organised. What's that?
It's on telly, Father Brown.
Yeah, well, you basically you see me. They needed somebody last minute, and they needed somebody who's a born alcoholic smoking weed. So that's me. So
Right.
that's the part I'm doing. So basically, I set up 2 classes tonight that I was going to do straight after filming. But seeing as I'm back, so the two that I wanted to do tonight were looking at some of the early origins of Brading Roman Villa on the Isle of Wight, which Judith didn't get to go to because she couldn't be bothered when she went to the Isle of Wight. I want to look at the early origins of Brading Roman Villa, and then what I wanted to do was a little bit about
Closed on a Wednesday for anybody that's interested.
Yeah, but hang on, it's closed on a Wednesday.
Yeah, so if anybody goes to the Isle of Wight and think, oh, Wednesday's a good day to go to Brading, don't.
Yeah, look. Do you think I feel your pain? Right? No, I don't. Okay.
No. So the gin distillery isn't far away.
You put the ties up, Carl.
She went there. Sir? Roger.
Have you put the ties up?
Can you hear me? I've had ties up. Oh, have I pumped the tires up? Right. No, it does need a bit of a pump up. No. It does.
Well,
it does. No, yeah. Look, Rog, if I really wanted your opinion, I'd ask for it, right? I'm not interested, right? But I will pump the tire. Look, Rog. Okay, just Rog, I will pump the tires up for you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's good.
Look, Roger, if I wanted your opinion, I'd ask for it. I'm really not interested. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, thanks, Rog. Yeah, cool. So we've got a few illustrations about what it is, you see, right? Because Judith couldn't be bothered to go and see the Roman villa on on the Isle of Wight, we would have had some great photographs, right? We haven't, so I've had to get them from somewhere else. It's your fault, Judith. Yeah. Rog, if I wanted a running commentary in my lectures, right, I'd ask you. I'm not interested. Thanks.
Okay.
So you can tell it's going to be one of those nights, guys, can't you? Yeah, I can tell. Right, so Brading Roman Villa, the Isle of Wight. Now, one of the things that I'm really interested in is comparing Brading Roman Villa with a Roman palace at Fishbourne. Now, we've looked for a little bit at the Roman palace of Fishbourne. And one of the conclusions that leads us to looking at Brading Roman Villa tonight is that these two sites have a keen link. They are both important sites before AD 43. That's why we're looking at a little bit of a map of some of the villas that we're aware of on the Isle of Wight. And this is a little sort of nice sort of illustration of that. So what they're sort of indicating on here, sort of just sort of some archaeologists is just saying, right, you know, what we're going to do.
The only picture we've got is the caravan.
What?
The only picture we've got is the caravan still.
What? Oh my God! Oh no!
It's very nice, but doesn't really explain the
Roger
Isle
was
of
there.
Wight.
No, it don't. Right? No, Roger's there. Right? He doesn't even mention to me, right, that when he's looking at a caravan, it looks nothing like the Isle of Wight. But he doesn't care to tell me about that, does he? Right? He's just. Again, you are Roger's just a silent pain, right? So okay, so I'm hoping that now. Are you looking at the illustration?
Oh,
yeah,
yep.
yeah.
The Isle of Wight, yep.
Rog.
Yeah, got it.
Oh, Roger, I'm going to give you a clap, right? Of course, it's the Isle of Wight. That's what I've been talking about. I tell you what, Roger, you're sharp
Right,
this evening, aren't you?
yeah.
Roger, I tell you what, just do this every month and we'll be happy with that. Okay, so one thing that would be good to explain is by looking at this section of the Roger. Where are we looking at now?
The Isle of Wight map.
Yeah, thanks, Roger. I thought I'd ask you. Yeah, cool. So, okay, so one archaeologist basically say that maybe right, there was total areas or some areas.
The sound's breaking up.
Yeah.
Back it again.
Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sit in the field with my sheep. Right, we're going to do this in the field, right? Because I should have better reception. Right, we're just going to follow me, guys. Follow me. So we're gonna see if we're gonna have a better reception in the field with the sheep, right? So if I'm surrounded by sheep, right, you know what the problem is, right? So I'm going to carry on talking, right? So Rog, am I sounding? Yeah. Look, Rog, can you just let me do the talking, Rog? Am I sounding loud and clear, Rog?
At the moment, yes.
Yeah, it does help because I'm outside with the sheep and the chickens. I'm wandering across the field with a laptop, with a cup of tea, right? With a notepad, with my phone underneath with my notes on, right? And hopefully, right, I'm going to be surrounded by sheep complaining whilst I'm doing the class outside in the sun, having heat stroke. Thank you very much. Right, here we go, guys. Okay. Guys, I'm trying to teach the class on. Shut up. Look, can you guys just shut up? It's not all about you. Right, guys, is that better?
It's all right now.
Yeah, I wanted your opinion, Anne. Do you know what I mean? I've had to go outside, right?
Yeah.
In the blazing sun to teach this class.
Oh, God, here we go.
Well, you're very kind to do that for us.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you say it, Anne, because to be honest with you, Roger doesn't care how much I suffer to teach you guys.
No, I'd help, Carl. You know that. That's a city.
Roger, if you want to help, right, come out here and do something then.
Oh, the bus is gone. I can't. It's too late for the bus now. I can't do that.
Oh, shut up. Anyway, what I was trying to say, this idea of dividing the landscape is by some scholars a Roman idea. Yeah. So when this person is indicating, for example, Rock Villa on the Isle of Wight and Brading Villa on the Isle of Wight, where they've territorial divided the landscape. But this is nothing new, because when we think about Iron Age Britain, the hill fort itself becomes the metaphor for the Roman villa, but years earlier. And what we've got is a division with the landscape. Dividing the landscape is something that we see with burial monuments all the way back to the Neolithic period. So what we can think of is that when the Roman era hits Britain, much of the structure of division and management of the landscape already exists. This is the whole point with this. So introducing Braden Roman villa on an almost an early Roman scale is what we're aiming to achieve tonight. So tonight, we're looking at Braden Roman villa, comparing it with what we already know at Fishbourne, and hopefully you guys will have heard what we were saying about Fishbourne Roman villa, which is near Chichester, which is northeast of here on the mainland. But if you're talking about Ireland, the mainland is Europe, but don't get confused. So most people, when they think about these Roman villas, they think about mosaics, they think about the period of the AD 100s, the AD 300s. They don't think about the real true origins of these sites. When we think about Roman villas, we always think about that they belong to Roman administrators. We always think that they belong to people who actually come from Italy, but that is completely wrong. 95% of all these Roman villas in Britain were occupied by people who were of British stock. So when we think about when we concentrate on this site, if we look at my next illustration, right, we can think of a parallel that we get with Fishbourne. We can think about these ornate gardens, and we can think about all these annexes around a central area. The one difference between Braden Roman villa and Fishbourne is a big chunk of Fishbourne is actually built on. It's under a road, it's under housing, or there's some open fields that they haven't excavated, or it's under car parks, or it's under the train station, right? Oh, by the way, Fishbourne is one of the only Roman villas with an actual active Roman railway station. Braden doesn't have a railway station, but the one thing about Braden, right, is that it's not built on. So they've been excavating it for a very, very long time. We'll come back to this illustration in a short while. But look at this. What we've got with Braden is that they've been investigating it for over 200 years. So again, magnificent mosaics there. And I want us to step back in time and ask a different question. Why was this villa built here? So if we go back to this sort of dividing the landscape thing, right? If we could just gently think about this, when we sort of enter the Roman period, AD 43, there's always this connection to do with, you know, the hill forts of the Iron Age, but most of the hill forts had already been abandoned. But one thing that those hill forts told the Romans is that at one stage, even at the point of AD 43, there was still mass organization of the landscape. Hill forts are to be seen as organization hubs that were used throughout the Iron Age. It's a way of bringing people together, these hill forts. Do you know there's over 500 hill forts across Britain, and you could probably say that there was possibly close on that in regards to Roman era villas, but a big chunk of these haven't been found. So when I was in Gloucestershire, and I was driving across the landscape, one of the things that I was thinking of to myself was that there's large tracts of land without hedges. There's large tracts of land that have got the odd trees here and there, and there's large tracts of land with some hedges. And you're just thinking, but this is endless landscape. There's very few houses here today. But in the Roman era and in the Iron Age, this landscape would be full of activity. That's one thing that we seem to forget. There was probably more settlements. There were probably more things going on in the Isle of Wight, for example, in the Iron Age and in the Roman era, right, than there is today. Because there are large, expansive tracts of land on the Isle of Wight that there's not built upon, right? And this is why we're still finding the archaeology. So why do we see these villas built where they're built? Because they're taking over functions of the previous Iron Age landscape in most cases. And this is something that we've got to understand truly. So when we can't just say, right, Iron Age, Roman, we've got to say transition into the Roman era, because none of this happened overnight. There was never, to lots of people in Britain, summer of AD 43 never happened, right? It never happened. It's like the 14th of October 1066. That really didn't happen to most people in Britain. It certainly didn't happen to people in Scotland. People in Wales were not affected. People in Cornwall not affected, right? So these things are things that we need to alter and change in our mindset. And hopefully is this sounding really clear now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't be sounding clear if it wasn't for Roger insisting that I go outside and be amongst my sheep, right?
Well, it's working well, Carl, be fair.
Oh, Roger, you're just a bloody creep. No, shut up. Roger's never had umbrage in my lectures. So this is the thing: the Isle of Wight before the Romans, right? And we've got a really nice illustration. In fact, we've got two nice illustrations. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to one of the first ones. We haven't got a massive load of illustrations now. So this is one of English heritage. You're thinking, well, okay, some of the settlements on the Isle of Wight may have looked like that before this transition into the Roman era, right? But again, this transition into the Roman era took decades. It really, really did. So the Isle of Wight before the Romans, long before the Roman invasion, the Isle of Wight was massively occupied. During the Bronze Age, people cleared woodland, farmed livestock, and cultivated crops. But one thing that I've not really expressed before, and I'm going to express it now, that when we look at, forget about Ireland, right? We're not doing that bit, but and forget about the Anglesey, right? And it's more. But when you think about the Isle of Wight, and when you think about the Isle of Man, yeah, these two areas seemingly don't have as much archaeology as mainland Britain. That's because these areas haven't been studied as much as mainland Britain. So there's always these grey areas. And fascinating, when we think about places like Orkney and Shetland, these are areas that we think have been massively studied, but we're still finding things. There are whole black holes across Britain. And one thing I was thinking as I was driving along today, I got to be honest with you, I was listening to this woman for about 40 minutes talking about Munchausen disease by proxy. And then after that, right, because it was a 3-hour journey, and after that, I was thinking, when I'm driving across this landscape, how much of this landscape do we actually really know about? How much have we actually really studied, right? So I often come up with different figures about this, but if I basically said that we probably know about 5% about what's under our ground across Britain, right? I wouldn't be too far away. When you ask people about how much of Britain is actually built upon in the modern day and age, some people questioned in surveys, 90% of Britain's built upon. And you're thinking, no. And people say, 20% of Britain, 30%. And you actually start to think, well, actually today, it's more like 5% of Britain's built upon. There's big tracts of Britain that there's nothing still.
Yes.
And then if we want to think like that, there's still, over time, Britain has been here for thousands and thousands of years, different stages, different phases, things there, things over there, and so on. So when I get the figure about 5% of what we know is going on under the surface, right? And then when we start to, we archaeologists just say, we know so much about Roman Britain. We don't. We really don't. Yeah. Most Roman forts have not been excavated in Britain. There's a few Roman forts that haven't been found. Most Roman settlements in Britain haven't been excavated, right? Whenever I take people to Hill Fort, by the way, I've gone off on a tangent, guys. When I would take people off to places like Hill Fort, the question is, why do we excavate the Hill Fort? And I'm thinking, well, we've got lots of stuff that we've already studied, right? But there's just so many things that we can study. Anyway, so the Isle of Wight before Rome. So so we're blaming the Bronze Age for clearing the Isle of Wight. But however, there's the Neolithic period, there's a Mesolithic period. In fact, can you remember those stats and those facts and statistics? Right, it's likely that the Isle of Wight has some of the first agricultural planting of grain in the whole of Britain. Right, but we know very little about the Isle of Wight archaeologically. So things are slowly changing. So we're looking at this illustration, right? And the next illustration that we've got will blow your mind, but we're just going to keep this here for a few minutes, right? So when we look at Iron Age Isle of Wight, we're thinking about this is something that's been established 2,500 years ago at least. So this would have developed into villages and settlements such as the one we're looking at on the screen. Rather than being isolated, the Solent between the Isle of Wight and the mainland acted as a major transport route. So all these things going back and forth. Boats crossed regularly between Hampshire and the island. Now this is really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. We'll go back to a little bit of a map a minute. And the reason why this point is really, really interesting is going back to looking at this plan. We don't know of all the Roman villas on the Isle of Wight. We don't. We really, really don't. That this, if you want to divide up the Isle of Wight into territorial bits and bobs, right? We've got fresh water over there. We've got sort of that one just before we get to Rock Villa, that section. We've got all these other ones, right? The division of the island. Yep. But the point being made is this: when people talk about the Iron Age being a period of great destruction and death and killing, so why have we got all these settlements? Why have we got all these people living and trading? You cannot live whilst you're being killed. You cannot trade whilst you're being killed. So we've got to think about the Iron Age as being a lot more peaceful. So when people talk about the Celts and they talk about the Druids, right? If you step back from these things and you think, right, more of a peaceful world, yeah, and this is how things progressed. This is why we've got Caliver Atrobatum, right? Because people are trading. They're making this land into the place that it would have become and did become in the Roman era. So the Isle of Wight was not isolated. It was connected. So let's look at that very special, specially prepared illustration that we've got tonight. Now, hopefully I can find it, right? Where is it? All this is supposed to be in order, but it's not worked out. Oh, hang on a minute. Look at this. I tell you what, guys, doesn't that look good as an illustration?
Oh,
Pre-Roman breeding, right? Iron Age settlement, Isle of Wight. So we're going with the caption there. So farming community with roundhouses, storage pits, stock enclosures, craft activity, overlooking fertile land and access to the estuary. This is a beautiful plan. It really, really is, right? And to be honest with you, I could probably spend another 10, 20 minutes just explaining this illustration, but I've got to talk over it because I've got my notes. So the Iron Age tribes, we think about the Isle of Wight. When the Romans arrived, Britain could be seen to be like a tribal mass. Yeah, the Isle of Wight appears to have belonged to the Vectis people, right? Or the Belgae people. The Roman name for the island was Vectis. Who were the Vectis? Was this a name that the Romans invented? Did the people of the Isle of Wight create their own coins? The answer is we're not sure. But all of these things being said, whether there was a separate local ruling family remains uncertain, or maybe these were all sort of small cellular-like groups of people. The people who lived at Brading before AD 43 controlled that nice little bit of a landscape on the eastern part of the island. What is clear is that there were numerous farms and enclosed settlements across the land. So I think in many ways we need to get more related and connected with our history instead of digging it up all the time. We need to be able to be more open with it. We need to have archaeologists and historians not lecturing you as much as we do. Because whenever we whenever we find something in archaeology, it's the best thing that's ever been found, isn't it? This is the most important thing, but that is only part of the picture. So, Iron Age farming. So, were the people after AD 43? Forget the name Roman now. Were the people who lived on the Isle of Wight, as they were across the whole of Britain, after AD 43, any different from the people before? The answer is no. A clear no. Now, that's really important for me to make that statement, because when you think about, for example, the Anglo-Saxons, lots of archaeologists are now resisting invasions of people over to Britain. Lots of people are avoiding talking about Viking invasions, right? There's a little bit more going on with the Vikings than the Anglo-Saxons, put it that way. We do have Danelaw, we do have Vikings invading bits of Britain and so on. Yeah, but then local people are become Vikingized, right? As they are Romanized, as they are Anglicized, as becoming Angles. So most if not 90% of all peoples that are influenced by new things are local people. And I could take this somewhere else, right? But I'll intimate something. We talk about people invading our lands today, and we're not going to talk any further about that. But then we talk about in proportion of the population, these are small numbers of people, right? And I think the fear is that they will become predominant in influencing how we are in society. But there's never been a point in British history that a group of people have come over to Britain who have just dominated and just changed the narrative overnight. It just doesn't happen. It's never happened, and it's not going to happen now. Anyway, we'll move on from that because it's a bit controversial, but I think we all know what I'm talking about. So, Iron Age farming. So, again, think about Iron Age farming. What have we got in amongst all of this? So, we've got cattle, sheep, pigs, horses. Yes, all of these beasts did happen, right? But we've also got to go off on a little bit of a tangent a moment, right? We've also got to talk about chickens. We've also got to talk about rabbits, little rabbits. When were rabbits introduced into Britain? And I think the biggest thing that we could say is that the thing that's probably influencing Britain more in how the landscape's managed is by what animals are influenced. We don't talk about this enough, right? So when we think about rabbits, we think about what damage the rabbit can do on our landscape. When did that happen? Or did rabbits live in warrens? Did this happen before the Roman era? Did this happen in the Iron Age when rabbits were introduced? So in many ways, we talk about human influence on the landscape. We've also got to talk about how the landscape was influenced by things that are influenced, like rats. Not just rabbits, well, the best thing, Roger, is squirrels, isn't it? So the destruction that squirrels did.
Yeah.
But that's in more recent times. But when we think about the Roman relationship with this landscape, are we talking about the Romans being completely different from how they see the landscape? And the answer is no, because what happens is that most of these things already exist. What the Romans do is they make it more profitable. Right. When I was doing my degree with University of Leicester, right, somebody said, "Oh, can you give me a lift? Can you give me a lift via Leicester today, whilst you're going back to Wales, from Gloucester?" And I wasn't convinced of doing that today somehow. But anyway, the point is that when I went to Leicester University, it was looking at how only things change in a dramatic way when you put it all together, right? So when we look at the Roman period, we think we put it all together. We think, oh, look what the Romans did to Britain, you know. But that was over 400 years. You know, it didn't all happen in one day. And how much of what the Romans did to Britain would have happened anyway? So when we look at Caliva Atrobatum with its bathhouse before AD 43, yeah, we would have developed towns and cities. So did we actually need the Romans anyway for all of these things to happen? At what time would these buildings start to look move from being rounded buildings into square and rectangular buildings? At what time did these buildings have actually started having forms of central heating? Well, it's already happening before AD 43, and places like Caliva Atrobatum, we've all mentioned that the other week. And drainage, well, actually, people have had drainage and sanitation in Britain, as indicated from Skara Brae 5,000 years ago. So do we really need to put our hands up in the air and say, thank you, Rome, right? The answer is no. So again, thinking about this illustration and thinking about the landscape, the introduction of barley, wheat, oats, that was already here. Emmer wheat was already here. Einkorn was already here. Maybe the Romans brought in different strains of barley, right? But most of these things were already being grown. The Romans just, I've said this before. I've said this point before. Years and years ago, Roger's been to these lectures, not just mine. Roger's been to these lectures and he's heard people saying, and the Romans came to Britain because of gold and silver. The Romans came to Britain because of slaves. The Romans came to Britain because of this and that. Maybe the Romans saw Britain as being quite civilized, and it offered just an extension of the Roman world, or became part of a world that already existed. That's what we should be thinking about, not those old stereotypes of Roman conquest. Was it really a conquest? Storage pits. When we think about places like this in Geropolis and Dorset, storage pits have been discovered at several sites on the Isle of Wight, showing food production was well organised. Maybe saying that a clear difference between how the Romans organised Britain and what was organised before is there might be less defined towns before AD 43. Towns did exist. Geropolis, Camalodunum, Verulamium, Caliva Atrobatum. Londinium didn't exist. It didn't exist before AD 43. But when we think about maybe the differences between Roman era Britain and before AD 43 is maybe there are fewer towns in the Iron Age, right? With lots of Iron Age hill forts, bank and ditch enclosures out of use, there's not much in the way of forts and defensive positions as there had been before. And when we do look at Maiden Castle, we look at looking at the abandonment of most of Maiden Castle before AD 43. So anything that looked warlike and destructive was gone and slowly being erased from the landscape before the Romans got here in AD 43. So what the Romans do introduce is a militarized landscape. That's one thing that the Romans introduced. Would Iron Age people have introduced a militarized landscape? For what reason? Why would they have introduced a militarized landscape? The Iron Age people would just not needed it because they had already seen that lots of these 5,000 hill forts that had existed before just were no longer needed. Why did we need them? So I know it sounds very romantic of me saying, Britain was quite archetypally, in my way of looking at things, quite peaceful. It is peaceful because because without peace, you're not going to get trade and movement. And if you're bringing amphora in from the continent, and no sooner as people have brought the amphora into Iron Age harbours, you butcher everybody. Yeah, they're not going to come again because they're already dead. So how do these things happen when war's happening? Because it's not a warlike landscape. So AD 43 introduces a warlike landscape, but how warlike will be a question for another night. So again, trade before Rome. Oh, hang on a minute. Where I've lost my illustration. Right. So come back over to me a minute. We'll where's my? Oh, it's still there. The illustration's still there, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
I pressed the wrong Firkins on the map. I did.
Oh,
Shut up, Rog. Okay.
Ooh.
Hang on a minute. The caravan again. Going through all these. I don't know why this is not well. Okay, there we go. So let's keep this illustration. This is from the 1800s. This is right as they're finding braiding. But with this in the background, this is distracting deliberately. So trade before Rome. One thing often surprises people, the Isle of Wight was already trading internationally, right? Excavations have found important goods arriving from continental Europe underneath these floor levels at Brading and across the Isle of Wight before any conquest. Objects moved across the Channel and from mainland Britain to the Isle of Wight before any Roman soldiers landed. I think we're obsessed by military. And the reason why that is that lots of archaeology used to be written by men, but 75% of archaeologists now are women. So, Roger, if you had your life over again, right, you could have all these women after you, Roger.
perhaps I could be a woman. It would change, you know. A nice skirt now and again. I think, oh yeah.
Roger, can I just ask you a very personal question without anyone, judging me, right? A few months ago when it was very hot, right? Michelle said, "Why don't you put one of my dresses on?" Right.
Wow.
So I had this nice linen dress, wandering around the fields with this nice flowing linen dress, right? And when I saw the postman that day, he said, "I like the dress, mate." Roger, is that acceptable in this modern day and age?
If you're happy with that, it's good mentally to keep you settled. Yeah.
Thanks, Rog. Roger, you are my father.
Less just wearing something, a loincloth or something. That'll do it.
Rog.
Yeah.
I think people accepted you, accepted me doing the right thing, and then you just went on to loincloths.
Well, I think in the heat, you've got to be very careful with the blood pressure, heart, and the things like that for the left ear. So difficult.
Roger, do you think the loincloth would add to chafing?
No, not put on properly with a nice cotton material. Fold it properly. Do a proper job.
Thanks, Rog. Thanks. I take your advice. Yeah. Yeah. Cheers, Rog. We'll crack on. It's good. I like your learned ways of looking at things. So back to the Isle of Wight. Before we go off on a complete tangent, I'm really enjoying this evening because I'm looking out over the landscape. I got the sun. I got sheep around. Right. I got my toes on the grass. I can see trees.
Watch where you're sitting in case you sit in something.
No, Roger, I'm on a seat. Thank you.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm looking out over the landscape and I'm wondering if I should phone the fire brigade because there's an absolute massive fire, but I can't be asked. So, Rog, Rog, let's stop interfering with me, Roger. I got to crack on. Right. Why was the island important? Here we go. So, looking at this map again, The Isle of Wight controls the western entrance to the Solent. Obviously, we don't have another map there, but you can get an idea. Yeah. So the western and the race of water on the western side there, just above. Where's my little cursor gone? Oh, there, just above the doings there. Ships travel towards what we now familiarly know as Portsmouth and Southampton, naturally pass nearby. That gave the island strategic importance. So, in other words, in a way, right, you could think about now. Andy knows more about this than me, but would you land materials on the Isle of Wight before you went into the race of the Solent and heading towards later places like Portsmouth and Southampton, which were known in the Roman period? So when we look at think about the Isle of Wight, fertile farmland, good grazing, in Judith's own words, great distilleries, timber, fish.
Carl?
Sure, Rog.
So
Timber,
it's
fish.
me. I was just asking a question. Was it actually an island still then?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was, Rog. No, Andy. Yeah.
Good, thank
Andy.
you. Yeah.
Andy, look, if you want to go off into this fantasy with me and Roger, right, you've got to buy tickets. Yeah. So, actually, Andy's taking us on a tangent, right? He's interfered with us. He's taken us on a tangent, right? So, as you can tell, Rog, shut up. As you can tell on the eastern part of the island, right? Some of this has been reclaimed. There was an additional bit of an island, right? So the Isle of Wight was technically two islands. Yeah. Good point. So when Andy's got a really good point about this, he's got a really good point. As opposed to the Isle of Thanet, right, where we got the Ebbsfleet evidence in regards to 55 BC Julius Caesar, right? The Isle of Thanet was an island, 2,000 years ago. Eventually it connected to the land, silted up, and become part of the land, right? So if we look at the opposite way, right, when did the Isle of Wight become an island? So Andy's got a really good point there. It may not sound a sensible question, but it actually is. So we think about, actually by approximately where that the villa is, right, which is eroded into the muds, right, there is around the evidence that we've actually got Mesolithic activity, right, out in the water, right? So at one point, Andy's right, the Isle of Wight would have been part or accessible to the mainland, right? But we're talking about 8,500 years ago. But when did the Isle of Wight become an island? Because, it's got very clay, muds and all the rest of it. There's a lot of silt there coming down from the rivers. Definitely the Isle of Wight would have been an island by the Roman period, right? But when it became an island, that's a nice bone of contention. So I'm possibly going to go back. It's probably been an island for at least 3.5, maybe 4,000 years. But before that, I don't know. So sometime between 8,500, when we know it was sort of still probably a little bit connected to the mainland, and about 3,500, it became an island. Thank you for that, Andy. That was a good one. Roger, it's not very nice for Andy to interfere with our conversation, but he did. He will be forgiven, though. So there we go.
Yes.
So thanks, Roger. Glad you agree. So when we think now, this is another thing with lots of these islands around Britain, right? The Isle of Anglesey is one of the richest agricultural landscapes of Cymru, Wales. Yeah, it's an island. Yeah, thank you, agreeing, right? When you think about the lowland area of Mayland Orkney, very rich agriculturally. Yeah, the Isle of Thanet, very rich agriculturally. The Isle of Wight, very rich agriculturally. Not going to go to the Isle of Man. I needed a little bit more research on that one, but good for grazing. The Isle of Man would have been good for grazing. It would have been good for timber. So obviously lots of timber is going down in the Bronze Age. Yeah. The fish are good. And sheltered anchorages. I tell you what, right, here's a little thing. Roger, we're going to go off on a tangent again. I don't know if any of you ever met Mike, right? But Mike was one of our regular members when I used to have a class in the Rhondda Valley, right? Mike used to be a fisherman on the Isle of Wight. he actually had a small fleet of trawlers, right? And he made a lot of money. The fish around, well, back then, the fish around the Isle of Wight, there were loads of them, right? The good thing about Mike is he used to just go out getting all the fish in, right? Just not ignoring all the rules, right? And he used to sell all this fish to local shops, right? So everyone used to get the best fish, right? But that's Mike, but he made a lot of money doing it. So fishing, I thought I'd give that a bit of an example. Nice bit of fishing. So now what changed, right? Going back to that illustration, right? What changed from here to go to here? That's a really interesting thing. What really changed? So AD 43, the Roman invasion. So AD 43, the Emperor Aulus Plautius. There we go. No, it wasn't the Emperor. The Emperor's to-be governor, Aulus Plautius, right? Nice. Roger, my name is Aulus Plautius. I work for the Emperor, Claudius. Right? So Aulus Plautius would become governor of Britain. And Aulus Plautius was at the head of the armies alongside future Emperor Vespasian and Claudius.
Oh.
Now, the big question is, did Claudius actually ever come to Britain, right? We've got no proof that he did, but we reckon he did, yeah? So when we... But it's very likely indeed. Now, this is one of the things. It might be, right, that one of the first places that the Romans landed was not actually Richborough, was actually the Isle of Wight. Now, this is really important. And now what we've got is a little bit... Oh, we don't do historians, do we, Judith? But Judith is talking in my ear, so I've got to do a bit. I got to do a Roman historian. So Suetonius, who's writing years later, mentions Vespasian, the future Roman emperor, conquered the Isle of Wight during his campaign in southern Britain. Now, if that's the case, there is more than one invasion of Britain in AD 43. But the problem is with Suetonius talking about Vespasian landing on the Isle of Wight, is just talking about the Second Augusta Legion, which may have marched from Londinium with Vespasian all the way through to Maiden Castle. But for the sake of argument, Vespasian landed on the Isle of Wight. Now, there's no evidence that he did, but evidence would usually come in the form of battles. With absence of evidence, Roger.
Yeah.
With absence of any other evidence, we'll go with the absence of evidence. So, because there's no evidence of anyone fighting on the Isle of Wight, it might indicate that may have been one of the first localities that the Romans invaded, because they had all these friendly people who wanted to take on Roman ways, right? Like at Braden, like at Rock Villa, like at the Newport Villa that Judith could be bothered to go and visit for us, right? She took some, put one of Judith's videos up, by the way. Thank you very much, Judith. And she took some nice photographs. Thank you very much. But she then went off to the distillery, right? She didn't take any photographs there. She just got drunk. But anyway, the point is that if you've got friendly people, right, and saying, look, Romans, come to us, babes, just come over, yeah, just trade with us. By the way, look at this. And the Romans go, wow, you're already Romanized, right? So this is all AD 43. So you're not going to actually see any evidence of any fighting, right? Because the Romans just walked in. And that's one of the things. Have we got any military evidence on the Isle of Wight? We're going to leave that for another week. Oh, I'm terrible, aren't I? Are there any Roman forts on the Isle of Wight? How many early Roman forts are in Kent, right? How many early Roman forts are south of London, right? Big question, which I think we'd actually go on till next week. I do have the answer, but I know Judith, I know Margaret's going to jump in there, but that's one of the questions. We'll do that next week. How many Roman forts? Don't look this up, Margaret, right? Are on the Isle of Wight. You'll be surprised. And whatever the answer is, and the answer might be that there's not many Roman forts on the Isle of Wight, or ones that have been discovered. Maybe that is the answer, maybe it's not. But the point is is that you're not going to really have much of a military presence for people who've actually said, right, that's fine, and you just move on to the next bit. Job done. Now, this is an interesting point. This is an interesting point. Now, we'll go on to another bit of history in a minute. When we look at the likes of Genghis Khan, yeah, Genghis Khan conquered cities by giving them a choice. He basically said, resist and you're all going to die. Open your gates, you'll all live. Now, that's interesting. And why is that interesting? So when we talk about Genghis Khan, and we talk about all that in the late 1200s, early 1300s, and his relatives and so on, and then you talk about Marco Polo and all the rest of it. So you're thinking, well, oh, by the way, guys, I'm off on one of those weird philosophical tangents, if you don't mind. So if you're gonna track these Mongol hordes, right, by the destruction they wrought across the landscape, right, you'll be fearfully disappointed, because lots of the cities that the Mongol hordes captured show no signs of siege because they didn't siege them. They went on to the next one. You then do eventually find cities that have been burnt to the ground because they resisted the Mongol hordes. But you can't track movement of people by the destruction that they wrought, right? Because sometimes moving people like Roman civilization to Britain didn't exact destruction or forts or military, just people moving into an acculturated way into the Roman world. And that's what we've got upbraiding. God, so those wordings, the conquest of the Isle of Wight was swift. Was it a conquest? Question. Thinking, did this come immediately at Brading? No. Rome rarely destroyed successful farms. Why did it need to? Instead, it taxed them. Local leaders often stayed in place. Many became wealthy by cooperating with Rome. Were they traitors? Were they traitorous? Were the people who decided? Who's just gone?
Margaret. She left a message saying she'd got granny duties.
I tell you what, Mag, that's just a lame excuse. Really, it really is.
Well, if you've got a grandchild and you've got to look after it, you have to, don't you?
Yeah, just put it in the corner of the room in a cage. That's ideal. That's what me and Roger does. Right. What a terrible thing to. Hey, Roger, you interrupted there in a moment of Belanger, right? Belanger. Now, Roger, what was the question I asked? Now, Roger can ask the question, right? Were the people who just sided with the Romans, who just become Romanized, right? No conquest at all. The Romans just walked in, right? Were they traitors? Roger, answer that question.
No.
What are you saying?
If you unseat the king, the leader, queen.
So, but okay. Let me put
destroy
it
the
this way.
country. In effect, they just took on the luxury ways of the Romans with the baths and all that. So they still honoured the rulers, the law and stuff. They just had a few new habits.
So they weren't betraying the people. They were just saying, right, okay, you can all live, right? You could just be the Roman thing, and I'll just rule. That's what we're talking about? Are you happy with that?
Just doing the Roman thing with habits rather than stamping a rule when you rule on people. To me.
And there's a point there's a real key point with all of this. That there really is a key point with that little bit of a conflab with Roger and I, right? And underlining this is this did not happen immediately, right? This happened over generations. Every generation blames the one before. But Mike and the Mechanics, by the way, and Andy loves that one. But anyway, the point is, yeah, this the Romans didn't say, "Oh, just build something like this now." You know, it didn't happen. This happened over a long period of time, and so in many ways, the Roman world just slowly crept up on you. It took years, and slowly you change this and you change that. So, Roger, I'm going to put it this way, right? I need to do a metaphor for something in a minute. It's very likely that after about 10 years, after 20 years, people probably thought that things had always been like this from the Iron Age into the Roman period. People had just thought that we've always built in this way, right? As the roundhouses started to decay, right? As farming habits have changed, right? People started to think, oh, this is the way things have always been. Yeah. And it can happen over a short period of time. Can I give you a metaphor, Roger? Right. The German ration pack at the beginning of 1939 had something like 4,400 calories. Now, Anne's going to tell us that an average man needs about 3,500 calories or something like that, but I can be corrected, right? So the German ration packs in 1939 were basically, calorifically, they were some of the best in the world, right? By the end of 1944, German ration packs, right? German ration packs were down to about 1,400 calories, right? Now, that's not going to sustain anybody. However, there's a point with me telling you this. Those soldiers that had served the 6 years in the Roman army didn't see any difference from 1939 to 1944, 1945, because they slowly reduced the calories month after month after month. So by the time they get to 1944, right, they don't have coffee anymore. They have a chemical ingredient which is being disposed of in one of the chemical processes in Germany, right? They mix that up with like a brownie slime, right, with a bit of sawdust, and they grind it down, right? Little bit of flavoring in there, right? And that's the coffee. People don't notice any difference. But if they tasted coffee in 1944 to 1939, they would definitely not drink the stuff in 1944, right? And so what we're talking about is that even in a modern day and age, a modern army that it was in 1939, 1944, the soldiers could not tell the difference. So after 10, 20 years, people living on the Isle of Wight would see the Roman world as the Iron Age world, because after 20 or 30 years, they'd forgotten what it was like before. This may sound absolutely crazy, but it's not. It's actual fact. We've seen it in the modern day and age. For example, I'm going to say it. One or two of you can shout at the screen. I was one of the first people to ever get a mobile phone, right? In fact, I had a mobile phone before anyone had a mobile phone, right? I remember that I didn't have a phone line. I had a mobile phone, and my first mobile phone bill in 1993, right, was 80 quid a month, and you know, that was all my weekly money on you know, on the thing, right? Anyway, £80 a month. All right, the point is I can't remember I can't remember a time before a mobile phone, except before I had that mobile phone, which was in 1992. You know, I'm 17 years old. But the fact is, there's another point to this, right? And we've got to move on. There's another point to this. After 20 years, there are new people who don't remember what pre-Roman Britain's like, right? I'm going to reword all this, actually. They don't, no, let's reword that. Let's bring that back in. So after AD 43, in the Isle of Wight, for example, somebody who was born in AD 43, right, cannot remember what it was like before AD 43. So 20 years later, that person's telling their family, it's always been like this. Were they thinking as Romans, or were they thinking of Iron Age people who had actually evolved into a new form of Iron Age person? So is this actually still Iron Age Britain? That is a big question to be asking. In 20 years after AD 43, right, is Britain still Iron Age Britain? If you can conceptualize it in the way I've mentioned. So life immediately after the conquest, we got taxes. Leaders stayed in place. The wealth cooperating with Rome. Is this Romanization or is this Ironization? What is it? Right, Ironization, you know what I mean? Iron Age, whatever. It wasn't a military occupation. It was just sort of moving into the new world, moving into the Roman way of life. Now, this is going to sound really, really different, right? Michelle and I have actually found a way of living without needing mains electricity. All our electricity is free, right? We've got solar panels connected to very high powerful batteries, right? That provides our electricity for drills, television, charging up phones, everything, right? So I would not go back to having mains electricity because I'd have to pay for it, right? Now, thinking about it that way, and you guys are saying, "Lucky you, you haven't got an electric bill." But if one of those generators went down, I'd have to fork out $1.5 grand to get another one. But anyway, the point is, what I've done is turned it around. So, could these people on the Isle of Wight gone to before the Roman period, or they found a way of developing a new way of living with or without Rome? So what I'm trying to get at is that, are we looking at a hybrid Iron Age Britain, or are we talking about a hybrid Roman Britain? I think we're talking about a hybrid Iron Age Britain. So technically, it should be we should be talking about AD 43 Iron Age 2. Yeah. So I don't know. We've lost somebody else now.
Will's just gone. He left a message.
Will's just gone as well.
Yeah, and he said he perhaps won't be back for 3 weeks.
Oh. Guys, I think what we'll do now is it's 8:39, right? We'll have a break, right? We'll have a break.
Yeah.
We'll have a break.
I'm gonna break off now, Carl.
Oh my God!
I got things to do, and Jill's here tomorrow, and so I'll see you next week. And get this updated.
Yeah, Roger, any excuse, Roger, any excuse, right? Do you want to see some sheep? Roger, do you want to see some sheep? Roger, do you want to see some sheep? Ladies! Right, here we go. Watch this now. Ladies! Ladies! Here we go. They're all going to come to the fence. Ladies, come on! They're not doing it. They're not doing it. Oh, there's some of the sheep. You see one? They're just gone. Anyway,
You're probably frightened of me, shouting at them.
Ladies! Oh, hang on. But
it's because you're speaking English.
We got a cat. There's a cat.
Oh, the cat's coming instead.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. We got some sheep here. We got some sheep.
Oh, in there.
There's the sheep. There's the sheep. Right. There we go. They're coming.
Oh, the
there
baby sheep.
That one's called Aqua. That one's Aqua because that one's Aqua, right? And that one there's called Nikki, right? They've all been sheared, and that's Aqua's mum. So there we go. Right, Rog.
Okay then, folks. See you next week.
Bye, Rog. Good to
I'll see you
you.
next week, Rog.
Okay.
See you next week.
Bye, Rog.
Update done or something. See you all.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Rog.
Bye.
Yeah, Rog.
Bye.
Yeah, Rog. All right, Rog.
Yeah.
See you again.
Yeah.
It was good
see you.
having that conflab with Roger. God, I'll have to pick on Judith now. Right. So what have we got? Right. So Will said, "Sorry, you have to do granny duties." That's Margaret. Will, I wish you all a good night. Possibly I may not be on in the next 3 weeks. Thanks for your time. Oh, never mind. So guys, anything you want to say? Andy?
And the last bit somewhat confusing. It's like putting labels on, whether it's Roman or whether it's Iron Age.
So no,
when I think these things are so, there's input from two sides. The changes happen. When groups come together, they do change each other by their cultures and their various things that goes on. And I'm not, where I'm puzzled is where one changes into the other, or they become more amalgamated. Although we put labels on to say they're this or that because of where they live or something, I don't know. But I just find that difficult to understand.
So no, what I think, what I'm saying is that it's a conceptual thing, right? So if we move away the labels, right?
Yeah.
So this would be like a Tim Ingold sort of layers thing, and sort of amalgamate everything together, right? So what I'm saying, right, is we're looking at it from thousands of years later, right?
Yeah.
What we're seeing is Roman and Iron Age, yeah, but we're seeing it from our eyes. Their eyes are seeing something different, right?
Yeah.
So a child standing in front, okay, let's do a teenager, right? An 18-year-old standing in front of us, right, who never saw what it was like before AD 43, right, would think that that what is going on around him or her is what the landscape was always like. So they're not right. This is another point, right? This is where it blows our minds, right? The Iron Age people would never call themselves Iron Age, right?
No, of course they
That's
wouldn't.
our concept, right?
Yeah.
So these people see themselves as always being that way, right? But we see that they have changed the way they are, right? Because it's the way we do our labels. So when you basically say AD 43, what you do, you put in the next 400 years of Roman civilization and see, look, it changed. Of course it bloody changed over 400 years. What's wrong with you? But how it changed is something else, right? It's how that change is actually perceived, but by us looking in on it, right? And if we gently say, right, let's go back and be an Iron Age person, but they're not. Let's go back and go to one of these people, right? I think we'd be quite surprised with how they see themselves, and they would see themselves completely different from the way we see them. They are not they are not the labels that we say they are.
And also, things change. I mean, I've lived a long time now, and even in my lifetime, things have changed enormously just within a community that's stayed the same. All right, we had a couple of wars, but it's and I think when the groups come together, like the Romans and the Iron Age people, surely they would have, in coming together, influenced each other in ways of becoming who they're going to become, in 50 years' time.
So I think the mistake is the labels. That is the mistake.
Yeah.
It's what archaeologists do. They try and make history simple to understand. Oh, we found a Roman settlement, right? They say it's a Roman settlement because a settlement. They found a piece of pottery that dates from AD 49, right? The piece of pottery dates from AD 43. So it immediately makes that settlement Roman, right? But that bit of pottery, there might not be a single person who knows what a Roman looks like on that settlement. But because it's, and then people say, oh my God, they're going to be wandering around in togas, right? Why would they wander around in togas in the winter? They wouldn't even know what a toga looked like. So this is how we probably need to approach history, and make it more like us. And the only way to make it more like us is to understand how we are today, right? And you know, it's the same as when I was a child, right? Oh God, we should have warned Margaret about this. When I was a child, right, my mum found out that I like Frankfurter sausages, right? So every single meal I had Frankfurter sausages. I had them in my packed lunch. I had them. I absolutely got me sick of them. And then I turned into being a vegetarian, right? And my mum worked out she could make these vegetarian pies, right? I would have a vegetarian pie in my packed lunch. Everyone would look, why have you got a pie, right? And then every single meal I would be a vegetarian pie, right? And the point with this is that I eventually thought I don't want this. I just don't want it, right? But they were transitions in my life, right? And that's another point. There are some things that happened in Roman era Britain that didn't work. In fact, there were lots of things that didn't work. The forts didn't work. The basilica buildings didn't work. They pulled them down, right? Oh my God, did you know, and I got to do a video of this. Did you know in the Old Bailey in London, right, there's a bit of Roman wall in the Old Bailey, right? Underneath in the basement, right? And in that wall, there's a bit of ornate marble that's been just placed into that wall to build the wall, right? And that ornate marble probably came from the basilica when they demolished it, right? So in other words, that's another form. Basilica didn't work, so they demolished it. My Frankfurter sausages didn't work, so they did this. And the other thing as well is Roman villas didn't work in some places of Britain, so they discontinued using them. So if you're discontinuing using the Roman villa in Roman era Britain and you're going back to a settlement, right? Does that settlement mean it's an Iron Age settlement? Or is it a Roman settlement? What is it? It's neither.
I'm confused, but by trying to put the labels on, I think when things become somewhat amalgamated in cultures, not always, if there's one absolutely dominant in controlling, but if there isn't that complete domination, then there would be, I would have thought, some more amalgamation, some give and take, we like this bit of that, then we like this bit of the other, and it comes together into a new thing almost, rather than this and that.
So I think there's lots that we can go really deep into this, right? And we are, but it's like there is so much to be said. Okay, anyway, thanks for that, Anne. Andy, has the reception on this thing increased a lot since we started tonight?
Yes, since you went outside, it's been absolutely fine. So it was cutting out a lot when you were inside. So you need to stick an aerial up on your roof.
Well, there is one thing. Andy, you can go and get whatever if you want me to do this in the snow. I am not doing this outside in the snow. It's not happening. It's not. It'd be like I'm dying now. Right. Anything you want to say, Andy, before we have a break?
No. I was interested in there. I'm not familiar with the geography of the Isle of Wight. I've been round the Isle of Wight, but I noticed that they were all those villas were all in a line. So I'm guessing there's a ridge or something there. But yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a big port now, so sheltered port ideal, and a staging post, because of course you could land there and not worry about the indigenous population too much because there couldn't have been that many of them. So just use it as a staging post for the rest of it.
And even with the people there, they would have been very useful.
Yeah, yeah, and they may have welcomed you. Yeah,
yeah. You know, we got all this grain. Look at those gullible Romans. We'll make a packet. And look what the Romans are going to give us.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing, that traitor thing, though, isn't it? Because it's like,
yeah,
you got World War II and France and Vichy France.
Yeah.
There's still arguments about whether they collaborators, or were they just protecting themselves, or was that a sensible thing to do?
Well, what else could they have done?
Well, I don't know. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Because the northern part was occupied, and they decided not to occupy that bit, just assimilate it, if you like, just like the Romans did. So
yeah, and very odd stuff. Yeah,
interesting though, because they would do the same thing there as in the French thing. There's always the danger of invasion should you not do what you're told. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, the Second World War is another beast altogether. It really is. Really is. Okay, thank you for that, Andy. Gina?
No, nothing to say. Thank you.
Good. And we haven't had to go at Judith much tonight. That's the second half. Right, Judith, anything you want to say?
Only that they were probably cultivating corn before the Romans arrived, so they'll have had corn as well as wheat, won't they?
Yeah, obviously. And there is one point that I was going to make, right? The earliest evidence of grapes being grown in Britain is from the Isle of Wight.
It doesn't surprise me. It's I know it was in the middle of summer, but it was the sun just didn't stop. It was a full week of full-on sun for the full week. It didn't break like it quite often does up here.
Oh well, you are living in Yorkshire. Yeah, it goes without saying. But yeah. So can imagine this, right? Imagine this, guys. Before we have a break, right? I got to feed the sheep now and get this on charge quickly. Imagine this: the Romans turn up on the Isle of Wight, right? Grapes are growing, right? Barley's already growing. All the animals that they would have brought over, they're already there, right? There's already settlements. There's already area. They're probably all already doing the tax system, right? What are the Romans got to do? There's not a lot they need to do, and they could just move on somewhere else. And if most of Britain's like this, then it gives a different picture, right? What is the Roman military doing in Britain then? Why are they got all these forts and things? So, and it makes us look at things very differently, right? Okay, I used to believe this about hard not fought. The Roman military was at hard not because they had to protect mineral routes and the trade routes. They needed a fort there because they were warlike people, and you're just thinking some of that isn't correct, right? You don't need a massive garrison on the top of a hill where probably nobody lives anyway, right? There's no sign of any fighting. There's just a military force that is there 1 minute, then they go away, and then they come back, right? And it's just thinking, well, all these things are really, really odd, right? And we need to look at them in a different way. On that note, we're going to take a break, and I will be back in. We'll be back about just before 9:10. We're back with the sheep. There they are.
And that one's pretty with his dark, long legs.
Yeah, they are.
Unusual colouring for a sheep, that one.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
It's part of an ancient breed.
Are they?
Yeah, Borere sheep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, our fleeces haven't been brilliant this year because we've had the weather's just not been right. So,
well, that's a shame.
So when
What
we
do you sell your fleece? What are your fleeces used for? What are they used to make?
Oh, people make they just sort of
weave them and spin them and weave them.
Yeah, I'm not in a weaving mood, but
no, but do other people do that to have
no, they buy a fleece. They buy a fleece and they process it themselves. Yeah, so
yeah.
So yeah, it's just that we some people just want they either want a fleece or we sell them by handfuls, right?
Yeah.
So basically they might want 10 handfuls of wool. So so the thing is, it's better to do handfuls rather than weight because you know, wool doesn't weigh a lot, right? And that people think, oh, you know, well, I want 100 grams of wool, but that's actually quite a lot. But if you do handfuls, it's not 100 grams, but obviously, you know what you've got.
Yeah.
So
well, do you know, I'd like some of that just to have a go with, but I'd have to learn to spin first. I'd have to get myself one of these. You hang them and spin them.
Yeah, no, they're quite easy to get those.
Get those.
Yeah,
get those and have a go at that. That'd be something to have a go at. I've never done that, and I do like doing lots of crafts, so that would be something fun to do, wouldn't it? And if I got enough to do a little hat or something with it, I wouldn't manage it.
So what you need to do is get a drop spindle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I tell you what, if you can get hold of a drop spindle, then come to us and then say, I want 10 handfuls of wool or whatever.
Yeah. Well, you'd have to give me perhaps an idea of how much a handle weighed, because, well, I suppose I could always have another one, couldn't I, if I had enough? Perhaps.
Well, obviously. I
don't want to take too much and waste it. You know.
Oh, right. So yeah, obviously,
if I had a bit,
yeah,
wherever that went.
I see what you mean. So if you
have another, that didn't finish my hat. I need another about the same or something.
And obviously we've got white, we got like a brown, we've got a black, and we've got like sort of creamy, mainly creamy. So yeah. So you have to let me know.
No, well, you'll have to let me know when your shearing's happening, and I'll see if I can get a spindle.
Right, no, we've got a lot of wool now. So
all right, you've got the wool. I've got to find a spindle first, haven't I? Then
we've got the wool. You find the spindle.
Okay.
So yeah, we do have a lot of wool. So
then if I manage to finish it, I can come to your lessons with the hat on, just to show everybody. If I manage to do it, because I've never done it before, and I tackle all sorts of crafts that I don't know how to do, and usually I'm manage them, you know. But I
don't know if were you in the classes when we used to have a guy called John? He used to put all sorts of things on his head, including his wife fronts.
No, I don't think I've ever met him. No.
Yeah. Well,
I'll show you my latest thing I've just made.
Go on.
Wait a minute.
Oh, an elephant.
Made it in clay. I put papier-mâché underneath so they wouldn't be too heavy, and then made him in clay.
Well, that's fantastic.
Well, it isn't fantastic, but it's because it's my first effort I've had with this kind of clay. I hadn't done anything with this before either, but I thought having a go at your wall might be another thing I could, try.
Hey, you could even put wool on the elephant.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to put wool on the elephant because he's got to go in a competition. So I've got to make him his royal, his judo or something it's called, and his thing for his head with all sparkly bits on. So I'm going to finish that. But anyway, he's more or less finished it as an elephant. So you can see, if I do like to do things with different crafts that I don't know how to do. It's because you're learning when you don't know how to. I hate knitting, as just to do all the time. So
so just get hold of a drop spindle. So right, so we're gonna crack on, guys, and I don't know if Dreena's there, Judith's there, Andy's there. Brilliant. I was going to say, if anyone's got any articles that they want to put in the magazine, then let me know. Any photographs, let me know. Yes. So, and yeah, thanks for getting all the monies over for this month and the next month. And what else do I need to say? We're probably not going to be able to complete what we're doing tonight either, but we'll crack on to what we've got, and we'll just see where we are. So, right. So where are we? Right. Okay. Back to that. Okay. Right. All right then. So I'm waiting for Michelle to do me a cup of tea now, because I'm outside again, as you know. So right, where were we? So think back to what we were thinking about, and sort of the adoption of Rome and Rome adopting Iron Age and whatever. So again, when we think about braiding, moving from our wonderful illustration, and the sun was on my my doodads earlier on, and I couldn't really see this properly. So at some stage they've got to move from this into building rectangular and square buildings, or in that influence. Archaeology suggests that braiding, the timber buildings probably stood here before the great stone villa that we now see today, under that wonderful structure that they've got. And so this is common across Britain. So most Roman villas that we do find, there's Iron Age stuff underneath it. So they've just, there's banks and ditches, and there's old timber buildings, and it's very likely that this then transitioned into timber structures after AD 43, that typically rectangular and square. And the problem is building a round structure, right? As we've seen, is that the rectangular square buildings are going to be probably easier to erect, right? The proportions are going to be easier, right? Building a round structure, there's different things to think about, but that's another talk. So again, why we're building here, why we're moving from building a villa within this landscape. The location is excellent. The villa overlooked fertile land, and then evidence of a local harbour in the Iron Age into the Roman period. So what we've got particularly with here, if we go back to that map, and there's something very specific, and I don't know why this is not in order today, but so you've got braiding there, and the point being is that the harbourage for braiding would have been in this area where my hand is, where the cursor is. So now the archaeological evidence, this is all silted up. But this would have been a perfect harbourage. This would have been sheltered harbourage, going well beyond the Iron Age as well. So ships could directly approach, as we've got with that illustration again. Yeah, so what you've got there is people could directly approach what was already there as this moved into an estated Roman villa landscape. So the early Roman farming, when you think about the archaeological evidence, again, I know you're going dizzy looking at these images as they move quickly. So what you've got is a mixed landscape of grain, sheep, cattle as well, and dairy products. So obviously any excess could obviously feed any other communities on the Isle of Wight, and then any excess could then, with the new system of trade, this could be moved around the Roman world. So these were individual businesses. These were individual agricultural estates, successful agricultural estates. And then slowly but surely starting to move into AD 100. This type of stuff isn't fully realised, but it's starting to move in this direction. So remember, AD 43, this is AD 100. This is 57 years on. So slowly timber structures are going to be replaced in stone. But again, this sense of 57 years 57 years evolved, this is within a landscape of gradual changes. So as we've already said, nothing happened overnight, and what one generation would have not seen much of a change from a previous generation. So but what we are seeing is material brought in from the continent. We're seeing sort of more coins being circulated, more pottery being circulated, glass being circulated, more ways of managing, say, gardens. We do have evidence of gardens in the Iron Age, but what we've got is these gardens becoming more ornate way after the AD 100s. So this is no longer simply an Iron Age farm. This is what a Roman farm looked like, which is different from what an Iron Age farm looked like. This is what a Roman farm looked like. But as we know, as the generation slowly moved on, people would start to think that it's always been like this. So what evidence does survive? So what we got at Brading is not just the likes of the mosaics, but we've got early pottery, obviously lots of pottery after AD 43, animal bones, coins, building foundations, various phases of building foundations, evidence for changing construction phases, all suggest a slow change evolving over decades. So when we go to that illustration again, that really nice illustration, and let's just go get that illustration. So when we look at this, so the landscape, so imagine thinking of this, but then imagine that this is AD 100. What you see is maybe there's more management of the landscape. There's more hedges. There's probably a different type of cattle. There is a mixture of grain growing. People have always tended the crop, so no change there. Small boats entering the harbour, but that's no change there. When you look across the landscape and you squint your eyes, there would be smoke from fires and hypercore systems after AD 100, but this smoky air and smoky landscape had been there for generations. So, and beyond the English Channel, you would now start to see different vessels. This would be the difference within the landscape. As you looked out, you would see different things. I know that's not part of physical landscape, that's part of the naval nautical landscape, but things were different. The villa itself, which replaces this, sat at the center of a working agricultural estate that the Romans would have been familiar with. So again, back to that illustration. But even though the Romans were familiar with this, in a way, the management of the landscape would have been something which would have been familiar to people before AD 43. It was just slightly done differently. Now, the owner would have been a person which had descended from generations of prehistoric people. Many villa owners were actually wealthy Britons, as we've said many times. Now, this is an interesting thing. This is another interesting point. When we talk about as things are moving on, as things are evolving, what language did these people speak? Now, I'm going to actually disagree with my notes. Right. My notes are telling me, my research notes are telling me that I'm going to say what my notes tell me. So within 1 or 2 generations of conquest, AD 43, they dressed differently, but this would have been an evolutionary change in dressing. And in fact, you know, agricultural clothes would have probably been the same as they always had been, you know, make do within the fields, and you're trying to keep yourself from getting sunburn and all these other things. But anyway, my notes then say this, that within 1 or 2 generations, some people started speaking Latin, and as a specification for sort of using Roman pottery, right? But it's very likely at that stage that most pottery is made on a wheel at this stage, right? And rather than being handmade. So people would have seen this as being very familiar. Now, there's 2 points with this point about people speaking Latin, right? That when we try to change people to speak and use a different language, it doesn't really work. And what I mean by that, and this is quite pensive really, what I mean by that, in Cymru Wales, the language is dying. They've tried to force people to learn Welsh. They've tried to make sure that everybody's learning Welsh across Cymru Wales. And thank you. My tea's arrived. They've tried to force people to speak Welsh in Wales, right? And they thought within a few generations everybody's going to be speaking Welsh in Wales, right? But the problem is that the legal language and all the rest of it is in English, right? So if we want to look at that very point that I made, that with some people spoke Latin, or within generations, lots of people spoke Latin, I'm really struggling to work out if that would have been the case or not, because most people would have been still speaking the language that existed, the British tongue, right? And only a very few people would have had some Latin words. And there's another point with this, right? When Roman economy, when Roman trade links, when the system started breaking down in the AD 420s, AD 430s, Latin seemed to decline rapidly, right? And it's only used by the monks and monasteries and only a few people. The language reverts back to what the language was before AD 43, right? So were there lots of people speaking Latin in Britain? And I would say very few, very, very few. And I can say that with conviction because Latin, as you know today, is just a language that very few people know. But I think that very few people have ever known to speak Latin. But I could be wrong there, but this is what this feels to me. So I'm just going to shout something out to Michelle, right? Which is nothing to do with what we're doing. Michelle, don't forget the letters. Sorry, guys. Don't forget the letters. Yeah, sorry, guys. You got to do this outside. I'm going to bring this braiding thing to a little bit of a conclusion now because I want us to. We haven't done later braiding Roman villa for a reason. I didn't want to do it because we're not doing that today, right? But why does this matter? Why does this matter? And why do this excavation stuff in the 1800s matter, right? Braiding tells us an important story. Everything that we discussed tonight. Roman Britain did not appear overnight. Or whatever we've decided happened overnight. There wasn't an Iron Age world one day and a Roman world the next. And for many people, 50 years later, nothing had changed. Because it was gradual change. Nate, this is another point. Very important point. Legally, native farmers became Roman landowners. Legally. But before, it was their land. So what's happened with the Latin, these people have become legal Roman subjects up until AD 212, and after AD 212, under Caracalla, they were legal citizens of the Roman world. But the people at Brading, these people had only just changed legal status within an empire. They were the same people. Local traditions blended with Roman fashions, agriculture, success funded luxury. And success comes about by, good example, Michelle said to me, she said, the two girls, Judith and Anne, they loved our rhubarb. So what we need to do, we need more rhubarb plants, right? That means that, we're not going to make thousands out of it, but what I'm trying to say, it means because we've got an excess, we can sell it, right? Or barter or trade, right? Because there's a market. Anne and Judith and other people are our market for rhubarb. But because Anne and Judith are the metaphor for the Roman Empire, before we didn't sell it. So that means we can change and we can sort of buy into more of the Roman dream. So by AD 100, the foundations had been laid for the magnificent villa that would eventually develop into what was excavated in the 1800s. Beautiful images of these, by the way. And hopefully when Judith does get to the Isle of Wight next, Judith, that's what your next holiday is. Isle of Wight on a Thursday, right? To take some photographs of the Brading Roman villa, right? And there's obviously Carisbrooke there as well. And you've already been to Newport. But everything that we've discussed tonight led to this. But this is what it looked finally like. This is what it finally looked like. At one stage, it looked like this. But this is what it finally looked like. Conclusion. Although visitors usually came to admire the mosaics, the real story begins centuries earlier, Without the Iron Age farmers, without the fertile landscape, without the strategic harbour, we know where we're going, folks, and without Rome recognising the economic value of the site, these would have not existed. Or would they have? But they wouldn't have existed like this. Not like this. They would not have existed like this. Brading reminds us that archaeology is not simply about spectacular discoveries. It is about understanding the long journey from prehistoric Britain into brackets, close brackets, the Roman world. So, folks, what I'm thinking, right? I'm thinking maybe it's 9:35, and I want us to do I want us to do tin mining in Roman Britain, right? Maybe what I could do is a little introduction and then call it a day, chat, a short evening, because we're lacking 4 people tonight now. So if that sounds okay, that's what we'll do. So, and we'll finish Roman tin. To be honest with you, we've got so much stuff we've got to come back to in these classes, but it's naturally a developing thing anyway, isn't it? So let's just go to my notes. So, do I say the following? This is when we look at tin mining in Britain, this is actually one of the most interesting debates in Roman Britain, because the answer is probably yes, but far less than most people imagine. So what the hell do we mean by that? We've got a nice illustration tonight, which we'll probably go on to next week. This. For years, historians assumed the Romans conquered Cornwall to obtain its famous tin. And without me even reading that, you know what my answer is to that. I don't agree with that at all. The modern archaeology paints a more nuanced picture. Because if you're going to invade Britain, okay, Cornwall, as Pete would be here tonight, Cornwall's an independent island in itself. And the Romans conquered Cornwall, but did they? So, Roman tin mining in Cornwall, myth, evidence, and archaeology. So, who mined the tin in Cornwall? Did Roman soldiers actually mine tin in Cornwall? Why? Because tin's been mined in Cornwall for thousands of years. At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Cornwall was famous throughout ancient world for tin. The Romans needed tin, so surely they mined it. But archaeology tells a far more complicated story. Far more complicated. How much of this illustration is real? And this is back to, I'm bloody getting cold now. This is back to the Isle of Wight again, because when we mentioned the Isle of Wight, I wrote down in my notes, it says, how many Roman forts were on the Isle of Wight? Do you know what I'm going to ask, Anne? Right? How many Roman forts are in Cornwall?
No idea.
Right, can we answer that question quickly? So if we go to, right, here we go. So we're not going to do this fully tonight, but I like this map of 1954. I love it. I'm using it a lot. Not much has been added to it, right? What we can do, we can move, we can chuck one Roman fort in there, right? Which isn't on here, but when you go to North Towton, we can probably extend that road all the way down to Land's End now. But what you've got tin mining and these circles here that indicate sort of Romanized settlements, right? These milestone markers, and there's a villa there. I think that's is that Cranbourne? I think that one there's a Cranbourne Roman villa. But anyway, the point is with looking at this is that The answer to that question is that there's only one identifiable, maybe two, Roman forts in the whole of Cornwall, right? So if the Romans mined the tin, right, where are the military going to stay? So that means that so surely they mined it. That's not true. Archaeology does tell a far more complicated story. So we're going to do, I think what we'll do, I got this in, I got the tin mining, which is written down in 15 points. So what we will do, I will do point 1, 2, and 3, and we'll sort of mention some of that next week for the others. So, question is, why was tin so important? Anyone can answer that. Tin was incredibly valuable. It sort of still is today, it really is. On its own, it is a fairly soft material. Yep, metal. Mix it with copper and you create bronze. Or, although Britain was in the Iron Age and later the Roman Iron Age, bronze was still essential for, with tin, status, household objects, military fittings, mirrors, jewelry, cooking vessels, religious objects. That's what you needed tin for lots of those things as well. Where you get tin, you also get copper. Okay. And where you get tin and copper, there's gold. So there's not just tin in Cornwall. It's not showing on the map, but there's gold and copper. Even the Roman army still used bronze extensively. I think the point with this is that we're not just talking about tin, we're talking about copper, right? And I think the other point is that where you get the Bronze Age, bronze is a massive, important product in the Roman era. It's still used as it is still today. Same with iron, it would remain important. So, just a little bit of a historian here. So, Cornwall before Rome. So let's get Cornwall in there. Thank you, Pete. There you go. Remembering our Pete, and basically, that's where Cornwall. That's that river there. So here we go. Cornwall before Rome. Cornwall had already been producing tin for perhaps 2,000 years before the Roman invasion. The Greek historian Diodorus Siculus described the people of Cornwall extracting tin, smelting it into ingots, and transporting it to the trading island of Ichthys, which is in fact the Scilly Islands. Yeah, the Ichthys, Scilly Islands. So take it to the Scilly Islands. This tells us something important. Tin mining was already a thriving native industry before Rome arrived. And we're going to end on this bit. Food for thought. Food for thought. And before we go on to food for thought, right, we're rejecting all those ideas that the Romans invaded Britain because they needed it for the mineral wealth, right? They didn't need to invade Britain for any of that because it already happened. Why invade a place that's already trading with the world? Why if it's gonna why need to do it if it's already happening? You know, thousands of tons of copper were being mined in North Wales for thousands of years, and that would continue to be mined after AD 43 and before AD 43. It would be continue to be traded. So why did the Romans need to invade if they already had the trade, right? So here we go. Why invade Britain? Many Victorian historians believed Rome invaded Britain purely for Cornish tin. That's not true. Today, most archaeologists disagree. The invasion of AD 43 had many motives. And as we close, one of those motives may have been prestige for Emperor Claudius. or to remove the memory of Caligula? Was it an invasion to create political success? Well, Julius Caesar invaded Britain, didn't he? But he didn't stay, but he still had the political success. Didn't need to physically conquer a country to have that political success. Taxation, well, people were already paying into the Roman exchequer before AD 43 due to different, and obviously trade, that creates taxation anyway. Now, this is an interesting one. Did the Romans invade Britain because they wanted complete control of the trade of all the goods that were coming out of Britain, or to refine it and make it better? Did the Romans invade Britain because it was really good agricultural land, particularly in the south and weird little places like Anglesey and Lincolnshire? We talked about the mineral wealth. Tin was almost certainly one attraction, but probably not the only reason. And on that note, we're going to call it a day. So all those questions, I'll try and get more illustrations next week. The problem has been download problems, actually, like that illustration. And it was a bit more barbaric, actually. Now, the big question is, would they have had military guards on the tin mining in Cornwall? No. We've established that because there's very few military bases. And why would you need to have guards on people who are already mining? Make any sense, does it? And if we go back to that wonderful illustration, which is this one, again, that gives you an idea of the landscape. And usual tin mining is not the deep tin mining that we see today. I think there's one tin mine still today in Cornwall. It reopened and may have closed again. But anyway, so some of these mines go, miles under the Atlantic. But it was like following loads. They call them loads, seams of tin, and that's basically how they mined, basically on the surface. Next week, we're going to no doubt come back to this, and naturally, yes, I've enjoyed the little banter with Roger tonight, and Anne, and we haven't had much from Judith tonight, but she's probably. Oh, and by the way, it was great on set today. It was like it was like with these herbal cigs, and I'm going. I'm just off on one, right? And nobody tells me that we've wrapped, so I'm continually there with my pint, and it's like, you're supposed to be going home, mate, right? Oh, am I? Oh, right, that's great. I loved it. Great. So yeah, no, I didn't breathe. I was like going, so getting in my mouth, like this, like, I guess, brilliant. Anyway, we did such a good job of this scene. I was dragged in at the last minute to do it, and it was like, right, great, loved it. Oh, can I share something with you guys? Right. On Sunday, I had a little message on my computer to say that I am now an award-winning actor.
Oh.
So there you go.
Oh, well done.
Thank you. It was like, just popped up. Oh my God, am I? Wow. So I'm an award-winning filmmaker and an award-winning actor now. Brilliant. So there we go.
And an eminent archaeologist too.
Yes.
Well, a very eminent archaeologist. Andy, stop taking the piss.
And you do more than archaeology, because I watch some of your stuff on YouTube, which is not about archaeology, is it? It's about what's going on in the world today.
Exactly. And you know what, Andy, what we've got to do, you've got to write a letter into the newspaper, handwritten letter saying we are delighted that we've got an eminent archaeologist speaking to us, and I'm gonna love to hear Claire's reaction to that, but we've got to do that. And yeah, you mentioned about the TV, you mentioned about the YouTube stuff, and I just thought I want to say black is black now, without sounding political, right? I was I was driving along today, and I found out I was listening to this thing about Nigel Farage, and I just thought, I just thought, right, we've got the Andy Burnham thing, right? So I can do this balance, can't I? I can do left and right. So I'm thinking the Andy Burnham thing is an absolute load of nonsense, and I'm thinking the Nigel Farage thing is an absolute load of nonsense, right? And I actually started to think. I thought, do I need to listen to this crap anymore, right? And I thought, no, can I rid this rubbish out of my life? Because I just thought I don't need to listen to this anymore. I really, really don't. And I can say this in a balanced way, right? You've got left and you've got right, right? It's all rubbish, right? And I just thought I don't need to listen to this anymore, right? And I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I feel that way, and it's now starting to make no sense anymore. It's really not.
It doesn't. The trouble is, it's so powerful. I do pay a lot of attention to it.
And you got
the power behind it, which can't be ignored, I think.
I've got to start ignoring it, but it's like you guys in Cumbria, right? You've had like you've had like 3 or 4 different county council names and organizations in the past couple of decades, right?
Yeah.
What a waste of money. All this money thrown down the road, Jane, for nothing. It makes me so angry.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was me. It's actually anti bit politics, because I think we should get rid of a lot. But that's me.
There was I saw.
Well, I don't know. I think there's 1 or 2 hopeful politicians around. I mean, even you talk some sense, I think.
Thank you, Andy. It's happening. Go on, Andy, do your bit.
I was saying, I saw an interview with and one of the newspaper editors who was asking, or was asked why, because the question was, what had come up on, I think it was on Question Time actually, had come up as why Andy Burnham hadn't done any interviews, or hadn't done any questions.
No,
not interviews. He'd done some press statements, but he hadn't. Once he got elected, but he didn't do any questions. And they were going to say, "Oh, it's terrible. It's all this, all the rest of it." And they said, "Well, not really. All he's doing is trying to take back the initiative, so that otherwise all the tabloids set the agenda, and he has to run along behind it." And he said, politicians really kind of do need to take back the initiative here and lead the agenda. And I thought, that's a very good point. And then instantly thought, oh God, then you get to Trump putting everything on Instagram or on his equivalent at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I thought, actually, I hadn't even thought about that they are leading the political agenda all the time, and it's drivel. It's not the important stuff's getting missed.
It is drivel, and I got to be honest with you. Right? Okay. We have just wasted, right, all that money in electing another 36 members to an assembly in Cardiff, with people just sat on seats talking and making decisions that don't even alter our lives one bit, right? Why did we need a load of people to tell us that we need to change the speed limit on roads, right? All that money wasted, and it's such a waste. It really is. Because the country's run by civil servants. So why do we need these people?
Yeah, it's the old Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, isn't it, with Zaphod Beeblebrox?
Yeah, it's just going around in circles. I think the first thing we saw with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they've got to put a motorway through the earth and they've got to destroy it, and they're just thinking, well, it's great, but that is politics, isn't it? If you just put the if you put the motorway over there, right, then you don't need to destroy the earth, and it's not, and it's like, well, it's such a waste, and you're just thinking, it makes people so angry, and it's just and do you know what, right? They talk about there's a left wing and there's a right wing. I don't care anymore. I really don't. None of it makes any sense. I used to be a politician, right? And I know what being a politician's about. It changes you. It makes you a different person, right? It affects you. It affects everything you touch becomes political, right? And yeah, it's just. So this is why we do archaeology, to try and understand these things, right? To try and unravel these things, and to in many ways, actually, in many ways, Iron Age Britain and Roman Britain is great, right? You don't have all these politicians, right? And even if you've got this governor, nobody knows who he is, and there's going to be another one, right?
Well, he used to be a politician, didn't he, in the Senate?
Yeah, but there was a Senate in Rome, right?
That's what I meant. That one.
but then again, right? No, you've missed the point I'm trying to make, right? Nobody cared in Roman Britain who the Senate was, right? And in most of the time, nobody cared who the emperor was. Nobody really cared. They just got on with their lives. They just, as long, for hundreds of years, the same people ran and owned the same landscape without needing politicians to tell them what to do.
Do you think they actually even knew who the emperor was?
They didn't need to know who the emperor was.
I wonder whether they actually even knew at all.
Yeah. Whether they knew an emperor existed.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God, that's taken us another direction, which is a shame that you've done it now. But did they? Right. Okay. When you look at Iron Age Britain, right, most people were in a group of people, right? Their tribe. Now, we're not talking about this guy sat in a hut, somewhere. We're talking about, you're my tribe tonight, right? There was a tribe of people, right? We similar thoughts, similar ideas, gather together, birds of a feather, right? So we move after AD 43, right? One, they didn't need to know who the emperor was. How they knew. They had no idea of the concept of what an emperor was, right? It's the same way that we don't know how the internet works and how I'm talking to you now and all that works, right? They had no need of a requirement to know. And this emperor, they would never see him. How many emperors came to Britain, right? We could probably name them and then work out that maybe some of them didn't come here, right? Did Claudius actually come here?
They never had any understanding of how the politics worked above them. I mean, because it would have affected their lives, and there would be things they'd been pleased about and angry about if changes were made by people above them, which happens today. I think it's happened throughout time when there's been control.
But in Roman era Britain, did any of these decisions made by the Senate change anyone's lives? And in most of the cases, never, because back to the point I made, right? You've got Braid. That's why we've done tonight, because you've got Braid in Roman Villa. There were people there before. They were trading. You've got this Roman thing, trading, people living there. It's the same family, right? Nothing's really okay. Nothing's really changed.
Well, one of the things they had was slavery, which you'd think there'd be quite a few people upset about that. The ones who were slaves, they wouldn't like it, would they? If they, however the society worked, it wasn't.
No. I'm gritting over the word slavery because we do have evidence of slavery in Britain. But then again, hang on a minute. There's always been slavery in Britain. We've got evidence of slavery in the Bronze Age, evidence of slavery in the Iron Age.
It's been everywhere. Yes.
So there's no difference. Nothing's changed, right? And I got to be honest with you. I'm gonna call this, right. We've had democracy for 250 years. It's failed. We've had dictatorship for thousands of years. It's failed. None of these systems of governance work anymore, right? Karl Marx, none of it works. Communism, none of it works, right? We've tried it all. Have we tried it all? The fact of the matter is, right,
I think there was times when things did work. Unfortunately,
Margaret Thatcher's
there were very powerful movements against it, and it caused that failure, rather than it couldn't have worked or it didn't work. It did work very well for a time.
I tell you where things worked, right? Forget about the First World War. We're not doing that. But where it worked in the Second World War, right? We had one enemy. We all got together. We had the home guard. We had that respect. That worked, right? Maybe we could start. I'm not talking about getting a home guard together, but okay, forget about all the other dodgy stuff. But if people, as we saw COVID, right? I never had my jabs, right? I didn't agree with it, but you guys probably did. But one thing that I did do, right? Even though I didn't agree with the injections and stuff, I did actually go out in the street and clap the NHS thing, right? You guys may have not done it. I did, whatever. There was a small period of time in the pandemic that lots of people, and yeah,
went out and banged saucepans and things. Made a lot of noise. I remember doing it.
Yeah. So that doesn't need politics. It needs people's goodwill to do that, right? And it's just I've got to try and stay away from politics completely. But anyway, right, guys, we're going to find out if there's anything people want to say. Andy, anything else, love?
Yes, I was wondering how big the tin industry was in Cornwall, because it would have been in decline, wouldn't it? I mean, I know the Romans did use quite a lot of bronze for particularly ceremonial armor and stuff, but not anywhere near as much, I don't think, that was being used before that.
Do you know what, Andy? You've said something there that I need to digest.
Mm-hmm.
Digest. Yeah, I'm going to write that down. Was tin mining actually in decline? Roman Britain. Now that is a big red herring. We can't do that tonight now, but yeah, that's a good way. So yeah, you've made a really good point. Maybe there was some intimation in what I said without me realizing it. But so just one quick thing, right? The only industry that really went into overdrive was gold mining, right? Because there was none left in West Wales, so the Romans had to come in and blast whole mountains to try and get whatever gold was there, right? Because and then, but what we do find is the gold that we find around where the gold mines doesn't actually come from the gold mines, right? So where that gold went, there's all these different things, but the only people who could have mined West Wales for its gold, right, would have been the Romans, because they had the technology to do it. Other than that, all the other mining industry didn't need the Romans. And good point, Andy. So anything about the tin? Yeah. Anything else, Andy?
No, thank you.
Good. That's a good one. That's we've got loads to get on with next week. How many Roman forts won Isle of Wight? We're going to do that one as well. Right, Anne.
I thought, I could be wrong on this, but I thought when we were discussing the Bronze Age some time back, you mentioned about the copper coming from somewhere else in Europe, but I can't remember where it was. I can't remember what you said, because I'm forgetting names of places anyway.
Yeah, you've got copper from Spain. You've got copper in Ireland.
Yeah.
You've got I think you've got copper in Croatia. You've got copper in Cyprus. Yeah, copper.
Yeah, that was right. Yes,
Cyprus. Yeah,
that's right.
So you've got all this copper, right? And we do have copper mining in oh god, hang on, mate. Right. You do have a little bit of copper mining, I do believe, on Crete. Is that correct? I think we got a little bit, but it wasn't very much. But the main copper mining is actually on Cyprus. That gives it its name. So yeah.
Thanks for that, then. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, Drina, you haven't said much tonight. I haven't insulted you much either. That's a shame. Next week we will.
Okay, go with that. Yes. No, I've got nothing to say. Thanks very much, though. It was good.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Remember, right, when you have this concoction that Anne puts together involving my rhubarb, right, it's not my rhubarb to fault, right?
Okay.
Good. Right, okay. Well, you know what you should
It
do?
might be difficult because it's something I've never cooked before. I'm making it up as I go.
She goes along. Do you know that's what I used to do when I used to have a kitchen full of herbs and I used to try and make some soup or a stew, right? I used to chuck everything in and occasionally used to taste nice.
Yeah. Then you couldn't remember what you put in because you thrown
oh my God, that's happened before. You've made something so beautiful you can never do it again. Do you know what? I used to make the most best stir fries ever, right? Because I didn't know what they tasted like because I used to put chicken in them for the children. But the ingredients I put in, I will never know because I never tasted it, but the children did.
Yeah.
So anyway, talking about children, Judith's got 10 grandchildren.
Oh, I wish.
How many grandchildren have you got, Judith?
Oh no! Don't get me started.
Oh, all right then. Okay.
No. Oh, I have got a question, but it might be a long one, so I don't know whether you want to keep it till next week.
Oh, let's have the question, but we might not be able to answer it. Go on.
You said that somebody might have invaded Britain to make a big show to cover up what Caligula did. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? Have I missed something?
Yeah. You've seen my Caligula video, yeah?
I have. I might have missed something. I've had a lot going on.
So basically, the point of me saying that is that when you look more and more into Caligula, right, he seems more and more an emperor that knew what he was doing, right? And he was only really emperor for 4 years, right? So there was a lot of reorganization in his reign. There was obviously the ability for his engineers to have 3 boats on Lake Nemi, for him to build lighthouses, for him to build military bases, for him to do all these different things. And you start to thinking, well, why then does history make him out to be an absolute lunatic? And then you question that. And then you don't want Caligula to be on the books as the one who conquered Britain, right? But he didn't conquer Britain. But then again, define what conquering Britain means. But that's for another day.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I think.
Right. So on that note, there we go. There's the van. There's the van there. And we might in the winter months, right? What in the winter months the plan is with the caravan, that we'll have lots of artifacts around which I'll be working on, right? And it'll be like a little bit of me going into talking about something. Oh, by the way, I've just looked at this today. Look at this on the screen. That's the way we're going to do it.
Just to finish off on one thing, I was reminded of a Monty Python sketch, well, a scene in The Holy Grail, when we're talking about how did people know who the kings and queens were and all the rest of it, and the peasants are all digging away in the mud there, and King Arthur comes past on his horse and said, and one of them looks up and says, "That's a king," and the other one says, "How do you know that?" He said, "Well, he's not covered in shit, is he?" I thought, how true. So you can tell who are the people, important people.
but then the question is, how did he know to make that differentiation in the first place? If you want to take it further back, Andy, right?
Yeah.
How does he know?
To answer Anne's question, the Iron Age people would have had a hierarchy, so they would have understood a hierarchy. They may have had different titles, but they would have understood a hierarchy of sorts. So.
Yeah.
But that was their hierarchy. That's the point. It's not.
Yes.
It's not. You know.
All it needs is one person to say, like, it's like, the emperor's like your chief. Oh, right. And that's it. Relativity,
But then again, we're living in a modern world, right? Okay, just forget about Donald Trump a minute. Are we really interested in what goes on with American presidents most of the time? No, right?
Yeah, correct.
Are we really interested in what happens in France? Other than Macron making himself known, who was the president of France before Macron? Do you know? Other than Angela Merkel, right? In Germany, do we really care? Does anyone know the name of the most powerful one of the? Well, let's just say it as it is: the most powerful man on the earth who runs China, right?
I get very interested in what happens in other countries.
Yeah, but that's you. Most people don't care.
I mean, I think international politics is very interesting in as far as you see whether it's going this way or that way. I mean, if you look what America's doing to Cuba at the moment, I'm really pulling the hair out. You know, I get it. I get interested in stuff like that.
And why?
I cannot get into this. I just know, but I just like I've always wanted to go to Cuba, right? But I would probably join the revolution over there. So we're not going to do that. And I'm not a left-wing socialist, but I just like good causes, right?
Like
I
a good underdog.
When you say why, I think partly I'm very interested in philosophy, when we're talking about and morality and ethics. I'm very interested in that, and I think that angle of politics interests me.
Yeah.
And on that note, right? There's my little lamb. You see?
Yes.
Anyway, I'll see you. I can't see the way how to get off this tonight. I've got
there's
no.
There's my little lamb. There she is. You knew. She's come for a bottle. There we go. There we go. Do you know what? I don't know if you've ever done things like this where you get a bit of a lamb chucked in at the same time. Margaret's missed all this.
Yep.
Anyway, anybody else got anything else they want to say before we go?
No, thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, anyway, thanks for joining us. We will be back next Tuesday and Wednesday, as usual, and lots to keep us going. Actually, so many questions tonight. So we will go on from there. Anyway, so I'm going to say goodnight now. If nobody else has got anything else, I'm going to say goodnight to Judith, Anne, Drina, and Andy. Anyone else online? And we'll see you all soon. Thanks for that, guys.
Thanks, all. Good night, all.
Bye. Bye.
Night, folks. Night. Enjoy the rhubarb, Judith.
Oh, thanks.
Right. Anyway, folks. Thanks for joining us. And here we go. This is the van. That's the van. That's the Laban's Ram. So okay, let's work this out. Okay, let's work this out. And okay, here we go. And okay, I'm just going to do it on there. Oh my God, there are people online. Oh my God, there are people online. Hiya. Okay. I gotta sign in, guys, onto this. I wasn't aware you were chatting tonight. I've been on set and I've been doing this outside. So those of you, I'm gonna say hiya, and here we go. Who have we got? We got David McCure. I didn't expect that. Woolly Mammoth. Just joined. Oh, good to have you on board, David McClure. Hopefully you're subscribed to this as well. If you have joined for the magazine, then I will. Well, I've got a lot to do tonight, so I'll see what I can do. Anyway, I'm going to write your name down to make sure I get on top. So David McClure. Anyway, guys, so brilliant chaps. In Roman, it's bloody boiling off out at 11 to walk around the Colosseum and get some gelato before bed. Have you seen the copper mine in the Americas before white people were there? Mental. Trump is winning, God bless. Right, anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Black Patches Dog, you got that young Morrissey look, right? Morrissey. Oh my God, we got to do a guys. We got to do a Morrissey song for everybody watching on live. We got to do a Morrissey song. Here we go. Morrissey lyrics, right? Morrissey. We've got to do something from the Smiths. Smiths lyrics. Okay, here we go. We've got to do something from the Black Patches Dog. We've got to do that. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. Oh God, what is it? Lyrics. Oh, here we go. That one. Here we go. We got to do flipping heck. About the double-decker bus. We love the double-decker bus. Hang on. There is a light that never goes out. Take me out tonight. And here we go. And if a hang on. And if a double-decker bus crashes into us, to die by your side is such a heavenly way to die. And if a 10-ton truck kills the both of us, right, that's it, guys. We're going to call it a night. Thank you for watching. I'm going to go on to the feed here and enjoy Rome, and thanks for joining, McClure. I've got to get onto that, work out where everything is so we can get that over to you as soon as. So much to do now tonight. I'm wide awake now. Okay, now I was slightly feeling tired in the lecture and I come back. So Margaret had to leave. So on that window, Margaret had to leave. I recalled all this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, have to go. What's that? Granny duties. I wish you all a good night. That's Will. Possibly I may be on in the next 3 weeks. Thanks for your time. So one more time, just do that. Sorry, have to go. Granny duties. And that was from Margaret. Roger left as well. I wish you all a good night. Possibly I may not be on in the next 3 weeks. Thanks for your time, and that's from Will. Okay, nos da chi, diolch yn fawr I chi, gwelwch chi eto, nos da, and thanks for joining us online. And yes, thank you very much for the Morrissey thing. Yes, got to do the Morrissey. And thanks for your time, guys, for joining us. Like and subscribe to my channel. Join the channel, £1.99 a month or whatever. And thank you very much. Diolch yn fawr I chi, nos da.